Bim. Guess what? We're back. Bim, are you back? Guess what? We're back. Live. With a hell of a delay, but we're back. Right, so, as I was saying in part 1, because we're now in part 2, the Eurovision, I don't watch it for the singing, I watch it for the scoring, because it's always political. You always get countries who were either part of the same country previously, or have the same politics, or are next door to each other, vote for each other, and then you have everyone not voting for the United Kingdom, Wyoming, because we are a pariah in Europe. At least that's what's happened for the last gosh knows how many years. However, this week was different. This year was different. So we had the Singing Wolves. I actually voted for them. I didn't hear them. I just voted for them anyway. So we had the Singing Wolves from Norway. But then the most bizarre thing in the world happened. And that was at the half time. This is going to be massive, by the way. The United Kingdom, after the 40 judges voted on it, basically we're leading with 283 points. Now Ryder, who I don't rate at all in any way, shape or form, said something that actually made sense. I know, I'm shocked as well. I don't know what it's got to do with Eurovision, but anyway, he did. And he said, if we end up on the left side of the scoreboard at all, then that's like winning it for us. You're like, you know what? Yeah, you're not wrong there. We get top 5, that's like winning it with, because something on top. Oh, for God's sake, now the internet's playing up. Alright, okay. And then if we get it, if we win it, then it's basically like a ticker tape celebration. Or worse to that effect. I'm like, well, we're not going to win it because Ukraine's going to win it. But this is the interesting thing. 40 of the 40 countries voted for it. Now, this is the judges, the jury, who vote, and then they come up on the screen, and then they say, these are all the countries who voted for it, but the top points go to. And one of them was France. And they come on, and we had no scores. There was only the deuce points to go, and I said, you're not going to hear Wyoming deuce points, and then because it's France and we hate France and France hates us, Wyoming deuce points. What? That's when I knew it was going to be a weird night. So yeah, United Kingdom by the end of the judges voting was leading, and Ukraine were 4th. In fact, they were just short of 100 points down on us. And I'm like, well, it doesn't matter what they were singing or what they were doing, but they were really low down compared to where I was expecting them to be. But nevertheless, I went along with it anyway. Don't forget you can join in the chat, by the way. And I thought, well, the public vote's going to sort this out, because obviously the public vote is going to be a lot more... public-y. That's the word I was looking for. It is a word. I've checked. I've looked it up. And needless to say, it was. And when we got the final score, we were second with 466 points. Ukraine had 631. So you're like, okay then. That's good. What's happened? Why has it happened? And I can't figure out why it's happened. Why have we suddenly become popular? And you're not telling me it's because of Sam Ryder. I mean, let's be honest. The guy's annoying as hell. There's nothing about him, in my opinion, my very limited opinion. And yeah, I was like, what? I mean, everyone knew Ukraine were going to win, and it was close. To be fair, it was close with Spain. We only beat them by, well, not even 10 points. But Sam Ryder, it's just like he's going to be everywhere now, isn't he? He's going to be one of these people who we look back on time and we think, oh my God, why was he such a hero? I mean, he kind of deserves to be a hero in one respect. But in the other respect, I think he should go back to wherever he came from, because he's just going to be irritating as hell, and there's nothing we can do about that, unfortunately. So yeah, Eurovision was a shocker. That's Sam Ryder, by the way. I didn't have a close-up picture of him because I don't really want to look at him. I mean, his long hair and his stupid beard. Nah. But that was the set that he had, and it was actually quite good. JT says, I can't tell if it's because we're helping Ukraine or with weapons, or that Sam Ryder because I like his song more than 99% of modern music. To be fair, I've stopped listening to modern music now. When I was a kid and I started listening to music, like everyone else of my generation, and to be fair, generations probably for a while down, yeah, at least you weren't Jedward. Although Jedward got more about him, you could laugh at Jedward. What was I talking about then? Oh yeah, modern music. When I started playing modern music, you got the turn that down, it's too loud, or whatever, or that's not music, it's just noise and everything. But from what I've heard from the last 4 or 5 years of music, it's just absolute benign wash. Most of it in the chart is just like a backing track with some either woman or bloke warbling over it, and you don't know, you can't tell when one song finishes another one starts. It's just like benign, absolutely awful music. So yeah, and Sam Ryder, he can't sing. I mean, that high pitched thing he did, I think he's just got one of them pads. You know when you're on what's it called, Celebrity Juice, and they have them pads that electrocute you. I think he just had them, but he had them on the front rather than on the back. Yeah, hopefully, one hit wonder. We'll never hear from him again. But I fear he's technically won Eurovision. Let's be honest. If Russia hadn't invaded Ukraine, he'd have won it. It's not the only thing that's been won in this weekend or last weekend. Yeah, your opinion doesn't really count, Kieran. Absolutely terrible. A lot of them is good old songs with some stupid rapper singing over it. Yeah, good old songs to you is like modern songs for me. Anyway, football. You know how much I love football. Oh my God, I love it. Anyway, Liverpool won the FA Cup, which means they could be on for the quadruple. I have no idea what that means, but it sounds impressive. Evening tough, and then we go to Stockport County. Now, a bit like Wigan, they've had a torrid time. They went bankrupt. I think it was just running out of money rather than being bought by someone who just stripped the club like Wigan. But they got relegated out of the league. So what's going to happen is, I know that, Sir Kieran. What's going to happen is that they got knocked out of the league, and they were basically playing in what I used to call the conference, but now it's called Vanarama or something like that, leagues, which is like non-league football. But if you win the whole thing, you get put back into the bottom tier of football, which is now Division 2. And Stockport County have done it, which is brilliant. Well done, Stockport County. And it seems like a nice club as well. I mean, if I was a local supporter, I'd probably support them because they seem to be doing it for the right reasons. For example, there's a gentleman who for the last 50 years has sat in the same seat at the I don't know what the ground's called for Stockport County, but at the ground he sat in the same seat for like the last 50 years. Sadly, he couldn't make it to the match because he's in hospice. And they heard about it, so the chairman and the captain went to the hospice to show him the trophy that they'd won. And I'm like, that's amazing. Why can't all football... This is what football should be about. It shouldn't be about how much money you can make, how many, you've got the best players in the world or whatever. It should be community stuff that you do, stuff that looks after people in the community. To be fair, Wigan Athletic do quite a lot of that, and I know Blackburn Rovers do a lot of that as well. But a lot of the big teams and a lot of the other teams, all they're interested in is getting money off you, making as much money as they can, and that's it, screw you kind of thing. But yeah, fantastic, and obviously made the man's day, probably year, to be fair. So yeah, good stuff going on. And then the other end, we've got survival. Everton looked like they were definitely going down, 100% going down, and somehow, a bit like Wigan used to do, they've managed to salvage from a 2-0 deficit at half time a 3-2 win, which guarantees them in the Premiership next year and not in the Championship, which is where Wigan were. And obviously we've all been joking about the first match would probably be Wigan versus Everton in the Championship next year. Well, it's not going to be, because Everton are now again going to be a bona fide team of the Premier League or Premiership or the Premier, whatever the hell it's called. Don't really care. But the problem we've got is the fans. They basically scored the winning goal, although there was still 5 minutes left of the match, and there was a pitch invasion. Now, the referee could have been quite right in saying, right, we're abandoning the game, because obviously the crowd have come onto the pitch. To be fair, the picture you see there is after the win. It's not before the final whistle. This is after the final whistle. But we've got to keep... We seem to be going back to where we were years ago with, I won't say football hooliganism, because I can't, but it definitely feels like we're going backwards, not forwards. Obviously, they did try and stop that in the 80s by putting up the fences all the way around, and then Hillsborough happened. I mean, again, an absolute tragedy. And they got taken out again. It just seems like we are going backwards, though. And the coach ended up having a bit of an altercation with a supporter on the pitch, and police are now looking into it. So, yeah, it's... I understand people get excited about football. I mean, I don't. I couldn't care less. But I don't. I don't get excited about much, to be fair, except Formula 1 when Lewis Hamilton crashes or something. But we've got to learn to contain ourselves a little bit better, because we are going to go backwards, and if we go backwards, we will get hooliganism again. You will get the repeat of Green Street and all that kind of stuff. If people can't control their excitement, then maybe they shouldn't be going to the football match and just watch it home on the telly, because it just seems a safer thing to do. Something else you can watch on telly is movies. For example, Chariots of Fire. Now, the reason I'm bringing up Chariots of Fire is I've never seen it, obviously. I don't watch movies, but the music of it was amazing. It was the that one, only not sung by a cat. And it was made by, or it was composed by a gentleman called Vangelis, and he sadly passed away this week. He'd done other stuff as well. Apparently he'd done Blade Runner. I've written Blade Runner down on here somewhere. Yeah, there you go. And a few other scores for music and other stuff. But I think it's one of the last, even though it was in the 80s, I think it's one of certainly the last 5 songs or tunes without any singing on it to get to number 1. The Chariots of Fire theme. Tough. Not as bad as the Reds when they won the league, so they went out into Liverpool and attacked the Liverpool Liver buildings. Oh yeah, because that's where Everton are based, isn't it? Yeah, football is a bit like religion, really. If we get rid of religion, we'd lose a lot of wars in this world. Now, the Queen. The Queen's got a big celebration coming up. She couldn't be bothered going to the House of Parliament and reading out the rubbish that Boris had given her to read out, so she sent Charles instead, the understudy. And it kind of made sense. However, she did make the effort of going to open the Crossrail in London, which has actually now been renamed the Elizabeth Line. And I remember the Jubilee Line being named the Jubilee Line because it was a Jubilee. Now, this is a Jubilee, but you can't have a Jubilee Line too, so they're calling it the Elizabeth Line because they've run out of things to call it. I think they've already got a Queen Line or something, I don't know. But anyway, the Elizabeth Line. Anyway, she went there and she opened it herself and she had a ride on the train and they give her an Oyster card and she almost knew how to use it. More than Rishi Sunak did know how to pay with something on a card when he was at that petrol station a while ago. Rishi Sunak is in the top 500 people of richest people in the country now, but not because of his wealth, because of his wife's wealth. Ah, there you go, you see. Anyway, the Queen has also announced, well, not directly, but it's been announced to celebrate the Queen's Jubilee that there are going to be 8 new towns being converted to cities. So we've got Dunfermline in Scotland, never been. Bangor in Northern Ireland, never been. Douglas in the Isle of Man, which has got a population of about 26,000. A city? Come on. I know it's the capital of the Isle of Man, but I mean, a city? Come on. Barrel scraping? You'll be making Wigan a blinking city next, or God knows, Wrexham. Imagine that. Oh yeah, Wrexham is also a city. Doncaster, Milton Keynes and Colchester. Now, I've done walk-arounds in Wrexham and Milton Keynes, and I don't think either of them deserve to be cities. I've worked in Wrexham. I don't think that deserves to be a city. It just seems like it's just given away willy and nilly. However, they've also given the status to what's it called? Port Stanley in the Falklands. That is now a city. There's about 6 people live there. I mean, come on. I just don't get why. For me, a city is somewhere with a cathedral or a population of like 500,000. It's not just because, let's make it a city. That's not how it works. It's demeaning. It's like knighthoods. They give them to anyone, don't they? I mean, who's that bloody cabinet guy, the education guy? How quickly we forget. Who's been knighted. And he was like useless. I think it was called George Useless, actually. It was unbelievable. Anyway, yeah, Milton Keynes and all that. I mean, years ago, I don't throw these things together, you know. Years ago, they made Preston a city. I mean, Preston is not a city. It's a town. It's not even an overly large town. It's just a large town. But sadly, this week, in fact, last night, there was a massive fire in the old Odeon in Preston, which used to house Tokyo Joe's, which used to house, or at least have recorded within it, one of the worst TV shows of the 1990s, Hitman and Her, with Pete Waterman, train lover, and Michaela Strachan, who's now an animal lover, apparently. And they used to be in nightclubs all over the place, including Tokyo Joe's, doing this really crap show. I mean, the quality of it was rubbish. I think it was for people who hadn't either gone out that night or had come home smashed out their head, and they probably thought it was good, but I wasn't a club goer. I mean, I used to do clubbing, but apparently it's illegal now, so seals are protected. Who knew? But yeah, I've not been to any major nightclubs in my life, and I've no intention of ever going. Way too old now. But yeah, Hitman and Her, it was. You loved it because it was bad, didn't you, Toff? A bit like Prison Cell Block H and Crossroads, where everything wobbled. Well, it was them two who wobbled on this, them two even. I mean, Hitman, he did a lot of hits. He was part of the Stock Aitken and Waterman group who did Rick Astley, Kylie Minogue, Sunita, and various other ones as well. Hiya, Angela. And it was fun for what it was, but what it was dreadful. It was bad TV. Oh yeah, there are definitely worse programs. There's always worse programs. Definitely. There's probably someone now actually that I could think of. Boris, we kind of mentioned Boris. It seems now that he's not going to get any more fines for Partygate, because, well, he's just not. But there was 126 fines given out, and 83 people were fined, which means there are some people who got more than one fine, and maybe next week we'll find out the names of the people who got more than one fine, and certainly they've worked it out. There's one person who could have had 5 fines. So, yeah, that could be interesting, but it also could be incredibly, really dull. But, yeah, Boris has dodged that bullet. It'd be interesting to see what Keir Starmer gets, if anything, because if they get one each, then that's a draw in it. Boris also said a while ago that he was going to get Brexit done. And then he said, I've got Brexit done. And now he's saying, right, we did get Brexit done, but I don't like the way it's been done, so we're going to get it redone. So we're going to undone it and then redone it. I don't think life works like that. Because if you do that, then anyone else who does a deal with you will think, well, are you actually going to stick with it? And you've got the issue with America, who've already said that if Boris and the cabinet, and therefore the government, decide to renege, whatever, on some of the aspects of the agreements that they signed regarding the border between North and South Ireland, by having the border in the sea, then they will not do free trade with Britain. And everyone's like, oh my God, that's terrible. Oh no, what are we going to do? And I'm like, get in. No chlorine-ridden chicken at KFC. I mean, this is brilliant news. So yeah, go on, Boris. Throw the Brexit deal away, and then we won't have to deal with America and have their bloody awful chicken. Sad news as well. Although it could have been sadder, I'll be honest with you. In Mariupol, the brave soldiers of the steelworks have given themselves up to the Russian soldiers, and as far as we know and as far as we hope, they are being taken as prisoners and hopefully will be exchanged for Russian prisoners caught by Ukrainians. It's a common thing people do during wars. However, we are dealing with Russia here, so whether or not all those men who bravely walked out of the steelworks actually ever get to see Ukraine again, I doubt very much. But it's going to be very difficult to find out what happens. But hopefully, at least the majority of them do make it back home and continue the fight. As I'm sure the Russians will continue the fight as well. But what's good to see is the fact that Russia is suffering so badly. I mean, they've been threatening to take over the world for as long as I've been around, on and off, and they can't even take a country next door to them that hasn't actually got a big army, lots of money, or anything. And this is a superpower, allegedly. The only thing that worries me is if Putin decides that it's not going his way to use weapons of mass destruction, and if he does, then we're all in deep poo-poo. I don't think he's mad enough to do that, but I didn't think he was mad enough to invade Ukraine either. So what do I know? Gigroy. I generally wonder how long the war will be going on for. Something sure has to give. Yes, it does. It's not going to be the Ukrainians though, and the problem is it's probably not going to be Putin either. The only thing that would give would be if Putin was no longer the leader of Russia. Yeah, I know they're supplied by Western nations, but they weren't supplied by Western nations when Putin invaded, and they weren't initially supplied by Western nations. They held their own until they run out of their own weapons, and then we started supplying them. Will this be a way of living for the foreseeable future? Possibly. It's just party time for arms manufacturers. It is. Thankfully, none of them are in Russia, because even Russia gets its weapons from overseas. So, or from the 1950s, which is probably where they're going wrong anyway. But yeah, Putin and Russia and all that, it's just it's a very scary thing. Well, hang on, we've got loads of right here. What I'm worried about is we're all thinking, Russia isn't as powerful as I thought, we can win them in a Cold War, be UK propaganda to make it seem Russia a weak country. Russia is a weak country. To be honest, someone or something is profiting from it. Always been the case with wars. Yeah. Supposed to be severely sick. To be fair, he has looked really ill, and I think I mentioned this in previous What a Week That Was. So if you can be arsed, just go look back. But there's pictures of him where he's holding onto a table and he doesn't let go of the table, and his legs going like mad when he's having a meeting. Yeah, I don't suggest we go to war. I mean, the problem we've had is we've interfered with other countries before because we think we know better. I say we. I'm on about war criminal Tony Blair and George W. Bush. We basically destroyed a whole society that we didn't agree with, that had been going for longer than we've had civilization over here, because we didn't agree with it. I mean, I don't believe any of the stuff about weapons of mass destruction. Never did. Don't believe that they were just doing it for the oil and all that, because, well, we don't get oil from there. We get oil from other places like Saudi Arabia and all that. I heard about Bush making a lovely blunder, but I can't remember what it was. Calling Russia a weak country. I seem to recall a chap with a funny facial hair saying, "You only have to kick the front door in and the whole rotten structure will fall down." Could there be someone worse than Putin? It could be really destroy everything in most countries. I think most people... Yeah, Turkey are in bed with Russia because they're very close to Russia. And they are not a strong country, and they are... Yeah. I mean, I don't even know why Turkey... I mean, their human rights violations alone... I mean, look what they did a few years ago, where they had the tanks on the bridges and they were shooting their own people. I mean, Turkey... Nah. I think we should kick him out, to be fair. I don't know how old you are, Angela, but I mean, I remember various Russian... He needs Putin in a Colin. I reckon there are people trying to get that sorted. So what will Putin think if every single country joins NATO? I don't think every single country would join NATO. I can't imagine China doing it for a start. Talking of which, China, it's not been in the news much, but I've seen it on what I class as almost trustworthy feeds, i.e. not some madman in his bedroom on Facebook, that there are forces and there are things amassing around Taiwan at the minute. So we could be having 2 wars going on soon. But obviously at the moment, and rightly so, we're all concentrating on Ukraine. But, I mean, China's not denounced Russia. Well, they can't do, if they're thinking of doing the same thing. To Taiwan, they can't suddenly say, well, Russia's, evil and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, fingers crossed they pull back from that. But it wouldn't surprise me if China doesn't do something to Taiwan. They may not necessarily go in, but they may put a blockade on Taiwan or do something to make the Taiwan authorities want to talk to China. So, but other countries, I think all of Europe does. I mean, Sweden and Finland are weird because they've always been people who have been neutral, like Switzerland. When you look at, whenever it shows a map of NATO countries, whenever it shows a map of the European Union or whatever, there's always a gap where Switzerland is, because they just don't get involved. They just do their own thing. But it is a strange thing that countries that have been neutral for so long have decided, because of Putin, that they want to get as far away from Russia as possible by joining basically America and its allies, because that's what NATO is basically. It's America kind of giving this umbrella out to everyone else. But it is a strange one, because if you lose your independence, shall we say, I mean, obviously they don't get taken over by NATO or whatever. They can still run as an independent country like we do. We've been in NATO for years, and we still, elect idiots. Mind you, last election we only had 2 idiots to choose from, didn't we? But it's, can still run things, manage things and everything. It's only to do with war stuff. And also if there's like a crisis somewhere, a country can ask for NATO help, and if they do, then most of the countries within NATO will send a few troops there to form a NATO army or a NATO peacekeeping force, rather than just sending in loads of Americans. You'll have Americans, English, French, German, Italian, all different nations. So it's not one nation going in there, it's all the nations going in there to try and keep the peace. And that's why it works. Yeah, NATO is a security blanket. That's a good call, that. Why can't they just go in and arrest Putin like they've done to Russian soldiers? Because Putin's kind of very well protected, except when he's riding bare-chested through a forest on the back of a horse. He's not someone you can get to very easily, which is probably why no one's actually got to him yet. And the other problem you've got as well is Zelensky has said that Donbass region is basically hell. It's been bombed that much, and I genuinely can't see the point of trying to take control of an area, i.e. Ukraine, by completely destroying it, because all you're doing is you're spending billions of rubles in this case on weapons, and then you're going to have to spend multi-billions, if you win, building it all back up again. And he's not going to get any help. If he does win, he's not going to get any help from any of, certainly, NATO countries or anyone else to get money to build back a country that he's destroyed. And it just seems, and he keeps saying, Ukraine should be part of Russia because they're our brothers and sisters, and all this kind of stuff. And I know about siblings squabbling, but by the hell, he takes it to extremes. And war crimes as well. We've had the soldier who's been found guilty. To be fair, he pleaded guilty of a war crime. A Russian soldier who shot an unarmed elderly gentleman on a street 4 times in the head because he was on a mobile phone. And he's saying that it was done he was ordered to do it by his commander, but he still did it anyway. And I'm like, I'd have shot the commander. I'd probably got shot myself, but we don't need people like the commander on this planet. So, yeah, it's a horrible thing. And that what worries me is, a bit like other wars, there is going to be some horrendous stuff come out after this. And I'm not saying the Ukrainian army are all innocent in this. Obviously, emotions run high during war, and rules will be broken. But I can guarantee there's been more rules broken by the Russians than there has been by the Ukrainians. And someone needs to pay for it, and we do need war trials and all this kind of stuff. And that's the thing. I don't necessarily want Putin in a box. Well, I do want him in a box, but I want him in a box in a court to answer this, and I want it to be live on Russian TV, because nowadays, if you know what you're doing in Russia, you can get on YouTube, you can get on Facebook and Twitter and all that kind of stuff, and you can see the perceived Western truth. I'm not saying all of it is true, but the perceived Western truth. Like all wars, there's propaganda. I mean, if you look back on World War II, obviously the Nazis had all their propaganda stuff that they did, But you look at the stuff that we put up, and we had as much propaganda as anyone else did. But you have to do that to keep your side on your people on side and confident that you're going to win. And that's basically what Russia's doing. Putin's doing. He basically owns or controls all media in Russia. Severely limits access to the internet. So basically, he's telling them, the Russian people, that he's defending them from aggression from Ukraine. And I'm like, I don't know how you get aggression from Ukraine when Ukraine didn't do anything and you had hundreds of thousands of troops all the way around their border and they hadn't done anything. So that's the problem you've got. Justice has got to be done somehow. But it's a case of how and when, and we need to get this thing sorted. And it could go on for a very, very long while. The last one like this was the Afghan War, which featured Russia as well. To be fair, the Americans had gone in Afghan first. This was in the 80s. Americans had gone in Afghanistan first, and they got bogged down. So they left. The Russians moved in. They got bogged down as well, but they stayed a lot longer. And then they eventually pulled out. And then Afghan became more stable. And then we screwed it up by Bush and Blair. We've already mentioned that. Well, that's one way of doing it, JT, but I didn't realise you had genes of Putin in you. Is he your granddad or something? Would explain a lot. Anyway. I told my friends I was protecting them. Yeah, that's basically exactly what he's done. Now, the good news is, there is some good news in here. Putin, it's been smoking Kim in here goes, I think COVID hit him. A bit like smoking Kim in NK blocks everything. Oh, so he thinks then COVID hit there this week. Oh yeah, Kim Jong-un. I've not actually got him down. A couple of things with Kim Jong-un. Let's put that up because it's not really relevant, but it makes more relevant than a Destroy City. Destroy City. Kim Jong-un and North Korea are having a massive outbreak of COVID. Now, the problem with a massive outbreak of COVID is the fact that if millions of people get it, there could be a variant that develops, and if the variant develops and it's worse variant than what we've already got, then that could get out, and then it could go around the whole planet, and we're back to square one again. Now, the bad news is, it's in North Korea, and you can't get out of North Korea. So whatever goes on in North Korea, hopefully will be contained within North Korea, unless it gets into China, because obviously they border onto China at their north as well. But the reason for this is there's been very few vaccinations, if any, in North Korea, and he's not got the money to buy them because he's spending his money on these rockets, Rocket Man, that he's sending over Japan or towards Japan or even over Japan. And it's one of them insane things where you kind of wonder what goes on in someone's head if he thinks that showing off is better than saving his own people. Now, admitted, he's never shown any sign of saving his own people anyway. A lot of them are on the below the breadline. We think we're poor here, well, no. A lot of them have disappear and never ever seen again. And that includes his own family sometimes, and people close to him. He'll have all these generals around him, and then all of a sudden there'll be different generals around him, and the ones that were around him you'll never see again. So yeah, Kim Jong-un is an interesting character. He's like Putin light, I think is probably a description. But there was a guy in America, I think it was America. Was it America? Might have been Australia, actually. I think it was Australia, who today, he looks fairly like Kim Jong-un even, and he kind of walked into a event because they've got an election coming on in Australia. So I think it was Australia. He walked into an event where the Prime Minister was and started doing his waving and all that kind of stuff. And the weird clapping he does and everything, and just kind of walking around. Anyway, he got questioned by the police and dragged away and whatever. But yeah, it was a bizarre thing going on. But yeah, I kind of hope that obviously it sorts itself out in North Korea, because the North Korean people, wherever you're born, you don't choose to be born there. So if you're born in a place where life is that awful, then there's not a lot you can do about it unless you get into power. But you're not going to get in power because people like Kim Jong-un will not let you get in power. And if you try, you will disappear. But we're talking about COVID. But there's something else new now that's coming around. And that is monkeypox. So, now, this is not... It's not going to kill you. It's going to make you look like me, to be fair. It's not easily transmissible, but there are numerous cases now in the UK and in America and in Europe of this disease. Well, it's a virus that attacks the whole body, but on the skin you get these lumps. So imagine a goosebump, but the size of a nipple all over your body. It's just horrible. And it's becoming a concern, particularly in London. So, yeah, monkeypox. It's not the new COVID, but it's something different to talk about. We're going to have a continental selection box of disease by the end of... That is very possibly true. Talking of a disease... Waggatha Christie. Why is this in the news? Who cares? I don't care. It's just taking up time that we don't need. If these people have got an argument, they should have sorted it out and Brexit done or whatever. It just makes no sense whatsoever. Screen's jammed again. It has. Well, I'm not going to restart again because, to be fair, it's nearly closed in time anyway. But yeah, there's a picture of Waggatha Christie up there, and they are really, really annoying. And yeah, I wish them ill. I really do. But yeah, we froze, so there's no point going back. I can hear what the picture's frozen. Right, well, we'll call it... Well, I did say vlog. So technically, you're listening to the radio version now. So but anyway, that's roughly going to be it. So we'll have a quick look back at what we've talked about. So Liverpool winning the FA Cup, Everton surviving into the Premier League and not dropping down. All the new cities, including... yeah, still works. All the new cities, including some right weird ones, including Douglas on the Isle of Man. The horrendous stuff going on in Ukraine still. Vangelis dying. Boris not getting any more fines, but 126 fines were issued. 83 people and 126 fines. So some got quite a lot. There is news of the new shop, but it's not good. I'll be bringing that up next week. Queen opened the Elizabeth line. Boris, I forgot to mention, Boris went to Northern Ireland. Complete waste of time, obviously. But he went to Northern Ireland to try and sort out the problem that he created. I forgot to mention that he'd done that. Anyway, doesn't matter. Soldiers from Mariupol surrendering. Sam Ryder coming second in Eurovision. And Stockport County getting back into the Football League by getting a win on the last match, and one of their long-time fans is currently in hospice, and they found out about it, and he'd been a season ticket holder for 50 years, so they actually took the trophy to him, and he was the first person to hold the trophy other than people from the club, which I thought was a nice thing to do. And I think that is it. Yeah, I think we've covered everything. So, for me, I'm moving. But for you, I'm not moving. Yeah, I've definitely frozen on that screen. So, yeah. Well, hang on, let's put that back up again. Oh, what am I doing? I'm getting all confuzzled. So, big shout out to everyone who spoke today. So, JT, Kieran, a Dotty Lady, Toffs TV, Angela O'Kane, Gigroy. I think that's everyone, isn't it? Yeah, that's it. So, yeah, thank you very much for watching. And we'll see if I can tweak a few bits and pieces and make it a bit more movable. I'm waving, but you can't see. So, I'm just going to do something with that because I keep forgetting to do it. Order. Move down. There we go. Swap. No, it's not far enough. Right, so order. Move to the bottom. And then order. Move up. There we go. Now we can go over it. No, it's still. How the hell is that doing that? Oh, because I haven't swapped it over, that's why. Yeah, there we go. So, yeah, thank you very much. Look after yourselves. And I will see you all again next time. And hopefully, I'll be moving and not sitting there with my eyes closed, trying to look like Kim Jong-un. Bad hair, you see. And the weight. Anyway, so next time, look after yourselves. And I'll see you next week to see what a week that was. Till then.